My name is Schott. This is for Workforce Ed 105, lesson assignment number 8. Program title is Millwrights. Course title, Metal Cutting. Unit of Instruction, Oxyacetylene Safety and Equipment. For lunch we were talking about, we went over in classroom theory, some of the safe use guidelines and proper setup and tear down. When I was an apprentice, I didn't get this little class. I was out on the job. A journeyman showed me the torch ahead and turn it on and start cutting. And I remember I was working and I smelled fuel. So I shut everything off, retightened, checked my connections, thought everything was all right. And I actually had one of these type of hoods on. Not knowing what I was doing, I just thought by checking it a little bit, it was good. I relit the torch, and having this on, there was a sediment trapped in under my hood here. And as soon as I lit it, whew, it was the fumes ignited and came around, singed my hair here a little bit, and came up around here in my nostrils. So it taught me, when you smell sediment, shut everything down, find your leak, and fix it. So that's why I like to go over these simple safety rules of setting up the torch. So let's start with some of the first things you want to do if you're working with the oxyacetylene torch system is, if you remember as we talked about in classroom, what's one of the first things you want to identify? We're thinking about fire.
Inspect all your fuel lines.
We're going to do that. One of the first things you want to do is identify your fire extinguisher. You know where your fire extinguisher is. And check some housekeeping. Get a quick look around. Make sure there's not a lot of paper or fire hazards laying around. So it's one of the first things you want to do is locate the fire extinguisher. Inspect your work area for fire hazards. Then you want to inspect your gauges. Look everything over. Check out all your equipment. Make sure things look good here, clean. Remember we talked about no oil on here, no oily surfaces, so you don't even really want to run your fingers on it. Have a little rag. Make sure that the lens covers are on. Make sure it's the regulator goes to the off position, which is when it's spinning freely, going out. Lens cover's good, needle valves look good. So inspect your gauges. Inspect your bottles. Take your covers off. You want to always stand to the side and give it a quick blast. Removing any debris that could come in here. You always want to just give it a short, quick blast. Same thing here. All right. Before we go on to how we would do a proper setup, let's talk about some of the safety equipment. Who remembers the shade color lens?
4.
Number 4. Number 4 is good, and that's what this would be. And you could wear goggles like this. You want to have the proper gloves, and you should have some kind of fire retardant clothing when you're burning. So I would have a jacket like this to burn with. You always want to be aware of your surroundings, where you're throwing the flames from the torch. So keeping all that safe usage in mind. Anything I missed about safety gear? Any proper PPE? Yes, we'll do that too. So we inspected our gauges, we cracked our bottles. Now's where we would put the gauges on. Who remembers? So I'm just going going to simulate it for now. You put the gauges on. You want to make sure that you get a nice good seal. So you wiggle it a little bit and get it to turn as it's going on. And you can use a crescent wrench, or there's actually a torch wrench that you can use. So the gauges are on. You're going to want to do the same thing again. You're going to want to close, shut off with the regulators on. Turn the valve out till it's free once the gauges are on. Who remembers what we said about when you open up the tanks? How far do we open the oxygen and how far do we open the sediment?
Oxygen 40.
That's when we set the pressures. But to open up the tanks, we open up the oxygen bottle full and the sediment, quarter turn. So we've got the gauges on. Next we're going to do the hose. So what's the first thing to do? Remember the first thing to do with the hose? Inspect it. Check for cracks. You want to look at it. See that it's not dirty. And give it a good look through. Inspect the whole hose. Once you've done that, you can hook that up. Remember the threads. What does the groove mean on the nut here? It's a reverse thread. So you can't go wrong on hooking up your fuel and your oxygen. Okay, we inspected the hoses. You would connect the hoses, make sure the connections are good, and purge that. Give it that same little crack. Same little crack. Now that purged the hose in. Now you're ready to connect the torch. Before you connect your torch, do a quick inspection here. Make sure everything's tight. You should be able to turn here. Make sure everything's in the off position. There you go. You can turn that all the way off. And if it's an older torch head, it's not going to have these at the bottom. Remember what these are. The check valves, flash arresters. So if it doesn't have them, it says it right on here, flash arrestor. If it doesn't have one, you're going to want to have a set that you put on. So there's a lot of different styles. Right here's one. Here's another set. So you do your inspection, make sure everything off, it's ready to go. You can connect this. Same thing. Green is oxygen, red is the sediment. And it's got the left-hand thread, so you can't go wrong with your hookup. Careful when you tighten. Tighten, don't over-tighten. It's a nice, good, firm fit. Now you're going to set your regulators to your desired pressure. We'll get more into this with the different tip sizes. We'll talk about how you set them using a chart. But we're going to be using a 7 and 40. So you would set the regulator pressure, bring it up to, this would be 40 for the oxygen. Notice green, red. You would set this at 7 for the acetylene. This is for the pressure. This is for how much is left in the tank. So we set our regulators to the desired settings using the Victor chart. Now you want to check the system for leaks. So here's where you would, if you smell something, shut it off. Check all your connections. If you still think something's wrong, here's where you would want to get some soapy water and go over everything. See if there's any other leaks. Once you've done that, don your proper PPE to be ready to cut. And then you're going to light the torch. So there's a lot of different styles of lighters. But you don't have one of these, you can just get your Bic lighter out of your pocket and just hit it with that, right? No. For one thing, where should your Bic lighter be if you have one?
Not on your person.
Not on you if you're going to be doing this, that's right. But you never light with that. Use one of these. If it's not working right, it might be because the flint needs replaced. A small flint replacement. So when you light, as we talked earlier, You want to make sure you hold off to the side and hold the lighter striker down to the side. You don't want to hold like this because you could cup the fuel in here and have a little extra explosion. Now, once you have it lit, you're going to adjust the flame, and that's where we talked about where the black smoke come off. You want to bring it back just to where that disappears and set your neutral flame. And we'll do that in the next lesson. So that was the proper setup. You've got everything set up. You'll do your projects, cut it down. End of the day, we're going to shut the torch down. So let's go over the proper shutdown sequence, which is oxygen first, on the torch. I'm going to shut it off here. Then acetylene. Then shut your bottles down. And then leave these off. Leave your line off. And then squeeze that, get the rest of the air out. Once everything's done, take your regulators, release them, coming out, releases it. So all the pressure's off of this, everything's bled out. Now you can take everything off safely. Anybody remember anything when we talked about OSHA 1926.350 about the storage of these bottles at the end of the day? Separated? 20 feet separation. Now that is a requirement only if you're not coming back within 24 hours. If it's within 24 hours, you're still going to do the job, you can leave them on the card. And if this had a metal barrier in here, that could also allow us to leave it on for a long period. But otherwise, we would need to separate these two bottles by 20 feet. Some other little tips to remember would be, think about when you're cutting, where your hose is, that you're not blowing the sparks down. You could ignite the hose. Basically, remember, you're dealing with some equipment here that can be dangerous. Safe work practices. Safety, it's up to you. Any questions? All right, when we go on to our next lesson, we'll actually start where each of you will do the setup, startup, and tear